hooker with a heart of gold, prairie nymphs, soiled doves, sportin' women, whores.
Prairie nymphs is very cute.
You're listening to The Oldest Profession. My name is Caitlin Bailey. I worked as an hourly escort when I was in high school for no good goddamn reason. I was just super curious. And then when I needed money for the first time, I got into sugaring because I'm not stupid.
I'm Wendy Starling. I started selling my panties on the internet when I was 34. Then from there, made the very smart leap to sugaring at the ripe old age of close to 35. So I do that to help support comedy.
So every week on The Oldest Profession, I am going to tell a story about an old hoe that came before us because it's the oldest profession, so it's got to have a history, right? And all these bitches have really cool stories. So I'll be telling a story from a sex worker, whore, lady of the night, woman of ill repute, whatever you want to fucking call it, that came before us.
And you are listening to The Oldest Profession.
To The Oldest Profession.
You got to keep things spicy.
What's finger licking good? I mean, come on. Obviously, The Oldest Profession
has a history. Oh my God, I've never been more ready to get into this. Tell me about some of these old whores.
Old whores.
Love it.
Well, before I tell you about Veronica Franco, we got to talk about Venice in the 16th century.
Okay.
So Venice is a comparatively peaceful and prosperous city during this period of time. The rest of Europe is battling it out, Protestants versus Catholics, right? You've got the 100 Years' War raging. You've got kings like dying left and right. You've got plagues happening, lots of war, all sorts of like unrest. Whereas Venice as a city is pretty prosperous. It's also a cosmopolitan town. Right?
Okay. Oh, Venice, Italy. I was like,
yeah, Venice, Italy.
I was like, who's Venice? Is he a pimp?
Yeah, not the beach.
Okay, yeah.
No.
I'm like, no, I know, hacky sack. Okay, so we're in Venice, Italy. What year is this?
This is the 16th century.
Okay.
But we got to talk about things that happened before that,
okay.
right? So starting in the 14th century, a bunch of cities, right? So before the 14th century, things in Europe are really, really rural. It's only the 14th century that you start to get these like cosmopolitan areas. And in those cities, you have municipally run brothels where the city has regulated and registered prostitutes, and the city itself is profiting from these brothels. You've got that all over Europe, and Venice is no exception. By the 16th century, you have this explosion of prostitutes because it's a port town, right? So you've got all kinds of merchants, you got all kinds of foreign travelers from all over the world, and it becomes the center of this new industry, publishing.
That's like a fancier. That's a smart move. That's like a fancier Grand Central Station.
Yeah, basically.
Because you get people coming in and out. There are a lot of hotels, so it's like not weird to be in there. I'm with it.
Yeah, totally. So you have all of these artists, you have all of these writers, you have all of these intellectuals, you have all of these merchants. They're all coming to Venice, and the brothels there, where the public prostitutes work, are thriving. And in addition to that, you get these courtesans who are basically just like the very rich, but they do a different role, right? So in addition to the sexual services, they're also expected, like the geishas, they're supposed to be great conversationalists. They're supposed to be great advisors. They're supposed to be intellectual. They're the only women in Venice who are allowed to read.
Get that.
Yeah.
Now, see, this is now
right.
Now, we talked about Atoy last week, and I love her, but this is I like this fancy shit.
Yeah,
this
it's really fancy.
This is the best part. Clothes.
So so prostitution is tolerated by the church and the state, right? So you've got these municipal brothels, you've got these publicly registered courtesans, like nobody's making a secret about anything, but because they thought that like heterosexual sex, like adultery, rape, and prostitution, are all like shades of gray because they're really cracking down on homosexuality. So sodomy is like a direct insult to God, and therefore is like an existential threat. You know how people think that gay sex causes hurricanes?
Yeah.
It's like that, but the 1600s.
It doesn't?
Yeah, no.
I got an apology
still
text.
Not a thing.
I got an apology text to send. Hold on. So wait a minute. So they're sanctioned by the government?
Oh yeah, municipally owned brothels where you have regulated and registered public prostitutes who are working in brothels.
That's kind of dope. That's like an Uber rating, but like for pussy, you know, where it's like you get 4.7 stars because like good pussy. She's great at chess. Like not only is she a good talker. A good talker? Am I a good talker?
Good talker. Well, I mean, it's interesting because it's sort of the same system that they have in Nevada, right? Where they have these brothels running in Nevada, where you have to publicly register and you're regulated by the state, the county, and the city, and also the manager of the brothel.
Right.
So it's a mixed bag, but it's definitely a place where prostitution is absolutely being tolerated. Like they have a legal status.
Okay.
Right. But it's also a period of time where, like, once a girl loses her virginity, she's functionally worthless. So to become registered as a public prostitute poses some future complications on this bitch's life, right?
Yeah, that would be a weird thing to think about. That's interesting, because then it's like, do I get married and be in a loveless marriage where he's going to be your husband's going to go to the brothel anyway, and once you get married in those times, and I only know this because I saw a period piece called Tulip Fever.
Oh, okay. Please lay down some knowledge.
Look, I watched a terrible movie. I almost walked out of it. It was that bad. So, I mean, it was terrible.
A lot of bad period pieces.
Yeah, a lot of bad period pieces. And not just the one in my pants. Huh? Who's coming with me on that? But a lot of in those times, the chicks that would get married, if you married a guy that had enough money to support you, wasn't your job to, like, pop out kids.
Right.
So it's like either you become kind of an indentured servant as a wife and your job is just to pop out kids, or you just, like, be a cool lady and wear nice dresses, and then you're like, we're never going to marry you, but you get to get laid and be fancy.
Absolutely. So like each one causes risks, right? But like let me paint a picture for you. Like marriage in Venice right now is going through a real rough transition because men are starting to marry later in life, right? Because the guilds and like the way that money is working, like you're not allowed to marry until you become like a master. So like journeymen can't marry, but the guilds are starting to crack down on like who can become a master. So so men are waiting until later in life to marry. This causes like the marriage market, right, to do some fucked up shit. So dowries become more and more and more expensive. So in order to attract a wealthy husband, you already have to have money. And if you can't afford to participate in the dowry system, right? So if, for example, if you're a family with multiple daughters, right, then the options available to you are prostitution or the nunnery. End of list.
Oh, well, that's an easy choice, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sort of depends on what you're all about, but absolutely. So this is the environment that Veronica Franco was born into. All right. So she's born in 1546. Just a heads up, in 1509, right? It's like 40 years before she was born. A census counted 11,164 public prostitutes, or about 10% of the population. So it's not like unheard of. The prostitution is everywhere in Venice at this time. So she's born in 1546. Her mother was a registered courtesan, and her father was a Venetian merchant. So she's a Venetian citizen with a coat of arms, but no inheritance, no like
really.
Have an estate.
Her coat of arms is just because her dad's a merchant. Her coat of arms is just like dead. It's like a fish, and then like a pussy, and then like a loaf of bread, and then a butthole. Or wait, we're women. That was a crazy like. Ooh, it's like a. It's hopefully it's not a scratch and sniff coat of arms, because what a nightmare. Pussy, butthole, and if all you're eating is fish and bread, yeast infection. Ladies, take your probiotics. Quick. No, but I do. The sodomy thing I want to go back to, because
sure.
So is that across the board?
No. It's just gay stuff. It's just that you remember when Bill Clinton had to like explain to one of those Southern senators that straight people also do sodomy, and he was like, I don't understand. They were just willfully, like, I'm sure prostitutes are doing butt stuff. But I was going to say, about
that's what I was going to say. Dude, why would you do anything but if you're like, okay, look, you're going to be shunned by society.
This is before smartphones. So they're not like snapping, they're not doing Snapchat.
I was like, this is great. You don't have to do butt stuff. You're like, I would, but I can't even charge you extra because it's not allowed. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Like God will smite us if you stick it in the pooper. Like that's not. Okay. That's the basic theory. So just like these are middle class people, all right. So her mother and father are both working. They're both bringing money in. They're not married. Her father seems to have like disappeared. I don't know what happened to her dad, but they have some money. And she has 3 older brothers. So it's 3 brothers and her. And unlike most girls in Venice, and I think probably because her mom was a courtesan, like is why this happened, she was allowed to sit in on her brother's tutoring sessions. So Veronica gets an education, which for women in Venice at this time is this like unachievable, distant goal. Like a lot of things have to go right in order for women to receive any kind of education beyond like needlepoint at this point. All right. So her mother also is able to cobble together a dowry for her because of her work as a courtesan, right? So she's a publicly registered courtesan. And so at the age of 14, She marries her daughter off to a doctor, which at that time is a good marriage, even though doctors in the 16th century were basically like butchers of people. But like he's a doctor. Before germ theory doesn't happen until like the 1800s. It comes out of Germany. So before then, doctors are just like using leeches and talking about humors and cutting off limbs. And like they're just killing people left and right. Yeah, it's like doctors aren't a thing until like the 19th century. But anyway, so she marries a doctor, but the marriage only lasts for 2 years. Now, I want to call this guy abusive. I don't know if he's abusive by Venetian standards because they were pretty much, you're just allowed to like lock your wife up and never let her leave and hit her if she gets mouthy. Like that's just how wives do.
Right. See, okay. Venice. So Tulip Fever was not totally inaccurate. Yeah. So see, I did learn that from a movie.
No, it's a real thing. Like not only was hitting your wife not illegal, it was actively encouraged because that's how you break women. That's how you like get them to shut the fuck up.
And what's so gnarly is like she's 14. So at that point it's
14.
Like so you could be like, either he's an abusive husband or he's just like a really stern, like strict adopted father. She's a bratty teenager.
Right, yeah. She's a bratty teenager. She's also probably smarter than him, which is really frustrating for everyone. It's like, so she's probably a bratty teenager, but she becomes, I mean, she's a genius.
Right.
Like and you'll see what happens next.
Okay.
So she leaves her husband after 2 years, the age of 16. 2 years later, she writes her first will because she's pregnant and she's about to give birth to her first child. And childbirth at this time is like one of the deadliest things that women can do. So she writes her will. And in the will, she specifies that her beneficiaries are to go after her former husband for her fucking dowry because he never returned it to her to support the child in the event of her death. Whoa. So now she's got a new baby, no dowry, no virginity. Both her and her mother become registered as public prostitutes at one of these municipal brothels.
Now, is there, and I don't know if this is, I mean, you're already doing a lot of research, so I don't mean to be like, hey, Caitlin, I have a question.
No, please. Yeah.
But like, so would they get married and then, the dowry, so the chick's family gives him the dowry.
He's legally entitled to
keep it.
Her dowry. Yeah. She doesn't have any fucking rights.
Even if he's just like a cunt for 2 years and knocks her up and then...
Well, he doesn't knock her up. She claims over the course of her lifetime, she has 6 children. Only 3 of them survive after infancy. And all of them have dads that like they're just like the noblemen that she's fucking. I don't know how it worked. I don't know. Like there's obviously not paternity testing at this point.
Right.
I think she just like picks her favorite at the time, like whoever she wants to be the dad, and it's just like you're the dad, and he's like, and then he has the option of being like, I accept and acknowledge this child, or I fucking don't.
Yeah,
you know, like it's one of those things.
That's the benefit, ladies, to having a very specific type, because if you're fucking dudes that all kind of look the same. You know, that's why I got to start doing that now at this point. You know what I'm saying? I'm 35. My hormones are going crazy. I'm like, I got to start picking dudes that are all very similar looking in a police lineup.
Yeah,
just on the off chance.
Just on the off chance, you gotta pick a dad.
Yeah, or just like fuck people who are blood related to each other. That's another hot tip because their DNA is going to be a close match, even if there's like a height or a hair color difference.
All right. So she's working in this brothel with her mom. And in the late 1560s, she meets this guy. I'm pretty bad at this. Domenico Veneer. Domenico. Can you pronounce?
Ooh, that sounds good to me.
Domenico? Is it?
Where are we looking here? Oh yeah. Domenico Veneer.
Sure, yep. Domenico. I might be mispronouncing that. Email us.
Or Domenico.
Domenico Veneer, who is a very influential patron of the arts and comes from a very powerful Venetian family. And he starts bringing her around the salons that he throws at his house, which are just full of artists, writers, poets, and the people that support them, right? So it's the very powerful and the very talented all gathering at his house. And they do this thing where the poets do like publicly challenge each other like a rap battle. So they're like exchanging rhymes in front of all these patrons. So they're like performing monkeys, like these courtiers and courtesans are like performing. She plays the lute, she does all of this other stuff, but there's all this art shit happening. And she starts to get really good at these like poetry rap battles with the male courtiers. So the courtesans are like selling sexual services for money. The courtiers are like asking for patronage for their art, right? So these poets and artists need patrons to support them, and the courtesans are like, this is how much it is per night.
Right.
Veronica Franco starts to do both. Veronica Franco starts to get, she gets commissioned to put together these anthologies, right? To support whoever is paying for it. So she decides which poets are getting published and which ones aren't. She's contributing her own poetry. She's like producing these books, and becomes really famous.
Shut up.
Yeah.
This bitch is us. This is what we're working both sides of the angle. This is amazing.
Yep.
And this is perfect because then she does a courtesan, like she has the money from that.
Yep.
And then fueling it to be like, and also then I'm an artist and
yes.
like, and not like I'm a quote artist, which is fine. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But like, you know, this is, I identify with this bitch.
And so, yeah, so Domenico Veneer, like, absolutely recognizes her as a talented poet. Like, he is a patron of poets. And he's like, no, you are a legitimate poet. Like, in addition to being super hot, like, your writing is good, your thoughts are good, she's great. You remember how Atoy was struggling because like when she got to the city, like everything was cool, and then like the longer she lived there, the like more anti-prostitution it got.
Yeah, they like pushed her out.
Yeah, so she starts to publish these anthologies, but in 1571, the Index of Prohibited Books starts to get enforced, and Venice's reputation as being like a city of whores and like a destination for sexual tourism starts to alarm the leadership. So in response, they banish foreign-born prostitutes, right? That's a common thing that cities do sometimes when they start to get anxious about their whores. They're like, let's get rid of the foreigners first.
Yep.
And
get
then
your pussy locally. It's going to be a recurring theme, I feel like, in history.
They also start to enforce these sumptuary laws, and they try to force the courtesans, because the courtesans are indistinguishable from fine ladies because they have their own fucking money, and so they can buy dresses and like buy whatever they want and do whatever. They're like, no, you can be wearing all the finery, but you have to wear yellow scarves to identify yourself as a prostitute, and you're not allowed to wear pearls, and you're not allowed to wear all this other stuff that they wanted to distinguish ladies from prostitutes, and they were having a hard time figuring that out.
Whoa.
Yeah, so they start to enforce those laws in 1571. In 1574, King Henry III has to come to Venice because he's fleeing being the king of Poland, and he's on his way to becoming the king of France.
Okay.
All right? So he's trying to go from being like the king of his shithole to being the king of fucking France, right?
Yeah.
He wants to get to Versailles. It's awesome.
And you guys can't see this, but Caitlin is you're doing such a great job. I really love you. Caitlin is using her hands to show me a map. So he's going from here
all the way
over to here. Can you imagine a boat, Wendy?
Yeah, right, yeah, just like that. No, but this matters, right?
Yeah,
so Poland
for sure.
is here,
okay,
and fucking France is here, but he can't just go through Germany because Germany is Protestant. It's not safe for the Catholic king to travel from Poland through Germany, so he has to go all the way to motherfucking Italy, and so he has to stop in Venice on his way to France.
Oh,
which
shit.
Doesn't make any sense.
So he really did take a boat. When
as soon as
I said boat, I'm like, Wendy, you're dumb. That's all land.
All land.
That's
Nope.
all land.
No,
it was
he's
a
on
magical
boat.
flying boat from the 1500s. That was a part of the Tulip Fever that I kind of checked out when they had a flying boat. I didn't know. Okay, so I was right. Okay, great. Go. Keep going.
Just a side note about like who Henry III is.
Yeah.
Like, so he's the son of Catherine de Medici, who's like a real powerful bitch throughout history, and he tries to court Elizabeth I like a couple of years before this happens, when he's like 16 and she's like 38 or something, and he refers to Elizabeth as a public whore and makes stinging remarks about her age. When he gets to France, he becomes painted by his political opponents as an effeminate homosexual who's unable to produce an heir, and he never gets married.
Yeah.
But and there's some disagreement about how this happens. So whether Henry III chooses Veronica out of the 210 courtesans who are listed in the catalog of the chief and most renowned courtesans, or, and this is my favorite story, it's possible that he just snuck away from all of the king shit that they had set up for him in Venice and went to her house and then just stayed the night without telling anyone, which, like, kings come with an entourage. Like, if the king doesn't go to bed, there's like 70 people who are not allowed to go to bed. So I really like the idea of him like just disrupting the flow of like pomp and circumstance in order to like hang out with Veronica Franco.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that he like, that it was a scheduled activity.
Right.
But anyway, they spend the night together, and she gets his support for her published anthologies. She writes effusive love poetry to him for many, many years. So that's in 1575.
Now, what kind of books? So you said this index, the books, they're banning books?
Yeah. They're the Catholic Church or like any government. They'll just get a wild hair up their ass, and they're like, we don't want heathen heretic poetry, but they let her publish. But there are other. It's just a sign that they're cracking down on like censorship and like the tone is sort of starting to shift kind of stuff. Right. So it goes from this like liberal enclave of artists and dangerous ideas to the Venetian powers that be being like, not all the ideas.
Yeah. Maybe some. Look, if you're going to write about taking it in the ass, do it. You do it very metaphorically. I need triple, quadruple metaphor layers on that.
Well, she publishes explicitly erotic poetry. She's not pulling any punches about being a whore. She's not like dancing around it. She talks very explicitly about the sex that she's having and talks about herself as like an erotic person.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like she comes like I
want to read this stuff.
I will absolutely. I mean, it'll be on the website. You can click through and look at all of her translation of her poetry.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Go to our website to read this with me. We'll do it together.
Yeah. So the very next year, right after King Henry leaves, she publishes her first volume of just her poetry. She writes, like I said, sexually explicit poems and letters. And in addition to that, she's eloquently defending herself against some viciously misogynistic poetry that's getting circulated, like claiming that she has syphilis, claiming that she is a corrupting influence on the city of Venice, and basically calling her like just a whore. So most scholars agree that the courtiers that she'd been competing with resented competing with a prostitute.
This sounds a lot like a fucking Reddit thread and internet trolls of today. You too.
Yes.
It's exactly like that. It's the same. And can I and we'll go back to this, but I just want to say this happened. This happens almost every time I go on Instagram Live with Christina Hutchinson. Yep. Okay. We work together. We produce a show together, and she's got this a huge fan base. Now, she goes on Instagram Live. You'll get tens of thousands of viewers. 100% of the time, people see me on there and they've heard me talk about the sugaring stuff and the panty stuff, and they will come on. And this happened a couple days ago. We're on there and we're talking about whatever, and I'm just in the background, and these people are like, gold digger, whore, slut to me.
Yes. Yeah.
People,
diseased, mouthy.
Was crazy. So we just I can let it roll off my back because I don't care. But these are people who are just coming on. It's like
people are terrified.
Terrified of whores. So we just shut off the comments, and it's like people do. But they were doing that back then. It's get over your fucking self.
One of my favorite facts about this is one of her. Most of these poems are published anonymously because, like trolls today, they were cowards. But one of them was a publicly hated Veronica Franco, was Mafio Veneer, who is actually Domenico Veneer's nephew. Right. So Mafio is upset that Domenico is not his patron because he thinks as his nephew he's like more entitled to that, and he's upset that he's competing with a prostitute and that she's getting the acclaim, she's getting the publishing deals, she's getting the commissions, right? So he accuses her of having syphilis, and then he dies of syphilis like 10 years later. She doesn't die from syphilis. Whatever. It's fucking projection. That's all this is.
I mean, it's so horrific. And this happens, and this is very similar. I think we can speak a lot on this, especially with comedy, because when I was talking about, when I would do jokes about being bipolar and being hospitalized for that, there was no problem. Nobody talk shit to me. Men didn't say anything to me. It was like, oh, that's a great joke. When I was doing bits, when I started doing the whole chunk about when I got raped.
Yep.
Women were into it, and I remember having male comics come up, and they were like, "Yeah, that's a good, but it's just because it's so edgy." And they're like, "Well, that's all you talk." And it's like, there's something in their brain where they're jealous, and they're like, "Oh, that's an experience that people relate to."
Yeah,
and it's a uniquely and men get raped too, and I understand that. Women more often
they're also doing the raping, so like it's not incomprehensible, inaccessible experience.
Exactly. And so anytime you talk about something that's beyond like dating and my wife's a bitch and my kids and airplane food, anything, and you talk about this on stage too same with the sex work. People get I've had people where they go like, oh, that was uncomfortable, and it's like, But it's what we're going through. We're not trying to be so late, but they're so shitty. They just can't handle.
No, you're 100% right. And so Veronica Franco is one of the first women. She's one of the first published poets in the Western canon, right? And she's also one of the first people to defend not just herself and courtesans generally, but also women. She talks about what her experience of being like a 14-year-old wife and like looking around and seeing the way that the wives of Venice are treated and looking around and seeing the way that the courtesans are treated. She's interjecting the feminine perspective into what was almost exclusively a boys' club, right? This is the very beginning of the publishing industry, right? So before this period, books had to be like handwritten by monks. Like that was the only way that books got copied. This is the beginning of the printing industry, and she's included in that.
Cool.
She's like, yeah. So in 1575, the same year that she publishes the volume of her poetry, a plague hits Venice, and it rages for 2 years, killing off almost half the population.
Oh shit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal. Prostitutes are really common scapegoats, like the Jews in that way. So the city turns on its courtesans, right? So they go from being this elevated, celebrated, the muses of these great painters, participants in public discourse and public life, and a lot of them are publicly whipped. A lot of them are tried for witchcraft, and a lot of them are driven out of the city.
Yeah, you can publicly whip me, but I will charge you for that.
Right,
So that's like, I'm like, they're like, we're gonna publicly whip you. Great, that is double. That's a double rate.
So Veronica actually escapes the plague. She leaves the city for 2 years. Now she says that she leaves because there's a jealous and irrational lover who's like chasing her, so she's running away from like an abusive situation.
Okay.
But she's also out of the city for the whole time that the plague is there. So like it's a real like double-edged sword. Like so maybe he was an asshole, and also maybe he saved her life.
Really?
Yeah.
She was gone when like before the plague got there, or like around the same.
I don't know. I can't.
Oh, you don't have
I
the exact.
I don't have the exact.
They don't have copies of her airline tickets on the internet.
Right. I don't know what her itinerary was. Exactly.
Look, they don't. We'll go to the library and look through the microfiche machine and see if we can find copies of her flights.
There's some shit I don't know. So in her absence, right? So she's gone for 2 years, right? The whisper campaign about her heats up to like way crazy intensity, right? Whores caused the plague. Veronica Franco is the epitome of decadent, insolent, anti-God shit, right? Because she's successful, right? She lives as a successful courtesan an incredible life where she's surrounded by finery. So she becomes this symbol of decadence, like the slut prostitute version of Marie Antoinette in Venice when half the population is dying from disease. Right. So in her absence, the vitriol against whores generally, but her specifically, heats up, and also all of her properties are looted, and she loses absolutely everything. So she loses all of her fine clothes, all of her tapestries, all of her jewels, all of her furniture. Everything is looted in the 2 years that she's gone.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So in 1577, she comes back to the city. The plague has killed one of her brothers. Her mom's been long dead. Has killed one of her brothers. So in addition to supporting her own 3 surviving children, she's also supporting his children now.
Okay.
Right? She comes back to the city, and she unsuccessfully attempts to convince the city to fund a charity for the children of courtesans, because she's like looking around at all of this shit, and like shit's about to go down, and she can just feel it. So in 1580, 3 years later, in an effort to try to reclaim her reputation, she publishes what's called the familiar letters, right? So it's a series of like, I forget, like 25 letters. The first of which is written to King Henry III, and the 21st is written to Jacobo I'm never going to be able to pronounce anything ever. That's just not a thing. So just get over yourselves. Tintoretto, who's a famous painter, thanking him for the portrait. So she's basically like, hey, powerful dudes, remember me? Like, remember the good times we had? Like, hey, King of France, remember that like blissful night we shared? Hey, famous painter, remember how I inspired some of your greatest fucking work? Hey, senator, like remember this? She doesn't out a bunch of people, but this series of letters which she wrote for publication portrays her as like a moralist, right? So she gives advice to her male friends. She discourages a mother from selling her daughter into prostitution, and it allowed her to shift her private life to the public sphere, trying to show the Venetian population, the ones that could read, so like the influential members of Venetian society, that courtesans are not bad people, that we're multidimensional, fully fleshed out people. So she wants to insist on a courtesan's virtue, wisdom, fairness, but it's too late. The same year that she publishes her familiar letters, one of her son's tutors, Rodolfo, which is a ridiculous name, Rodolfo Vanitelli, reports her to the Inquisition for charges of witchcraft and making magical incantations in her house.
What?
Yeah. So now the scholars have sort of like dug into this, right? So it looks like Rodolfo was stealing from her and she was reporting him to the like petty crime division for theft. And he reacts to that by sending her to the Inquisition on charges of witchcraft, right? So she's like, hey, you committed this misdemeanor. And he's like, what if we just executed you? Like that's what happens.
That's so intense. So now here, and I always bitch about my phone and I'm like, technology is too whatever. But that would be kind of handy to be like, when she's approaching all these influential people.
Right.
And they're like, I don't remember you. And it's like, no, motherfucker, I got the email chain right here.
I've got these letters that I'm publishing.
Exactly. And I sent this to you in a PDF thing. So I, this was my, dude, it's so intense, not to get like overly deep and, I mean, obviously like we're doing a podcast, so we're not like out running through the streets, like knocking on senators' doors, but it's similar, I think, to what we're trying to do with the show, like our mission with the show. And every time you and I talk about it, and any other sex worker that is public and talks about what they do and identifies themselves as a sex worker. And that's why it's so important, because it's about humanizing us, and we're people, we do other things. It's like, I have real good pussy, but guess what, I can also rap battle poetry or whatever she was doing. She was like rap battling sonnets. That's a great idea.
She's rap battling verses. It's
I'm
great.
gonna like do like sonnet rap battles, and so that when I go,
it's like a roast battle where half the one roast team is just like anonymous all male poets of Venice, and then the other roasters just Veronica Franco. Like that's what it was for years, basically.
I bet the jewelry was sick.
It was some pretty tight shit. So this tutor brings her to the Inquisition. The Inquisition, of course, has taken over Venice because of the plague, right? So like, after the plague happens, people are like, why did God make this happen? And the Inquisition is like, we can pretend we know the answer. So like that's what's happening in Venice.
Dumb question.
Sure.
What the fuck is the Inquisition? Here's how I know the Inquisition is, because in Monty Python, Holy Grail, in Monty Python, they go, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. That's how I know that. So I hear that and I giggle and I'm like, okay, so Inquisition. So what?
The Inquisition is basically like the enforcement arm of the Catholic Church on steroids. So after the Protestant Reformation, right, the Catholic Church starts to get real nervous, because before the Protestants, the Catholic Church was like the empire of Europe. They controlled everything. So you have these little princes and these little kings and all of that stuff. But all of those people are ruling by divine right, as established and enforced by the fucking Catholic Church. When the Protestant Reformation happens, the Catholic Church is like, we got to start murdering heretics. We got to get rid of the anti-Catholic people, because they're getting uppity, basically. Yeah. So the territories that they control, they go in and they look for heretics to murder. It ends up, of course, being your regular scapegoats, homosexuals, uppity women. We call them witches. So this is part of like the witch burning phrase that happens. But yeah, it's basically the Inquisition is like the enforcement arm of the Catholic Church at a moment when they're feeling super anxious and they're way overreacting.
God damn. And if you want a little, but now that I do understand, and not, but I swear to God, from Monty Python, because with the witchcraft thing, that's crazy. We're just like, it's like now, anytime you're upset, they're like, you're on your period. Yes. Or you're like, whatever. It's like, you can't,
the witchcraft was catch-all for like, what's wrong with you as a woman?
Yeah. You're a witch? No. I'm a bitch.
Do you want to have too much sex? Do you not want to have enough sex? What's going on with your, what's going on with your pussy? It's probably the devil.
Yeah.
So anyway, she has to defend herself publicly. So normally, if this had happened like 5 years ago, whatever, she would have had enough social clout and powerful friends, and her friends would have been in a position to sort of protect her.
Right.
But because it's the plague, because she's lost all of her money, because her status is starting to slip, she's forced to publicly defend herself. against the Inquisition.
God damn it. Where's Henry III? Is he dead? What's his deal?
Henry III's in fucking, he's busy
He's in
being
France?
the king of France. He doesn't have time for every fucking prostitute that he, on his like weird sex tours. Like
God damn it. I was like, come on, Henry.
No. He's not rescuing
Now, was
nobody.
Facebook invented then? No?
Not yet.
Okay.
No,
I
no.
just, I mean,
she
I don't
could have
really
publicly shamed him on Facebook and be like, I still got that dick pic. Like,
yeah.
You're not getting
I'm
away
going to
from this.
subtweet the shit out of Henry III if he. Okay, so he's out of the picture. God damn it.
He's busy. He's in France.
Yeah, but
he's got
still.
French shit to do. Her lifelong protector, Domenico Veneer, is able to make the whole thing quietly go away, but only after she publicly defends herself.
Okay.
And her defense wipes out the rest of her resources and really damages her reputation. I want to talk a little bit about this incantation in her house thing, right? So the tutor accuses her of doing like spells in her house.
Right.
And she admits to doing spells in her house, but she doesn't admit that she believes in them. That's like the line that she draws. And then there's this other witchcraft stuff where they're like, you're bewitching the hearts of men and making them fall in love with you. And then she's like, nope, that's just prostitution. There's nothing magic about it. That's just how people work. So she gives this really impassioned, eloquent defense of herself, but she also does admit to doing some magic tricks. It's a weird, it's like a weird defense.
Yeah, but that's in the same way, like, you know, like people who are like right before, if they're about to be in a car crash, they think they're going to die. And then you go like, or when I've been like really, really high and drunk at the same time and I thought I was going to be like, dear Jesus, please save me. It's like people are like, Wendy was praying in the bathroom. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't.
She's lost all of her shit.
But it's like, I didn't mean it. I just was I was just nervous. And I'm like, it's like, I guess maybe this will work.
At the end of her fucking rope. Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, during this time, the line between like paganism and Catholic ideology is like thin and porous, and people are doing like all kinds of weird stuff. And like peasant religions have always posed like kind of a threat to the dogma of the church. So she's lost everything, right? She's got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 kids to fucking feed. Mm-hmm. She's got a tutor, right? She's trying to set her kids up for success. She's trying not to fuck them over, and shit keeps disappearing at her house. So she does this like peasant witchcrafty ritual with like a mirror and a basin of water to try to like reveal the thief to me kind of thing, so that she can stop that from happening. It's like, you know, this like, who among us has not done like a vision board or like, you know, like it's like, it's that kind of shit.
My go-to, I love a Ouija board. I meditate, do visualization, and we do all that kind of stuff. But it's like, well, it was a water basin and a mirror.
Yeah, and then and
they're like, she was casting spells. You're like, I was just trying to watch the eclipse without burning out my retinas, you stupid fucks. And I'm smart. I wasn't doing a spell. I was practicing my Duolingo.
Yeah,
because I was practicing French. That's why you sounded like tongues, you dumb peasants.
So her reputation never recovers, and she never recovers. Okay, so the Inquisition, the public trial happens in 1580. Her protector, Domenico, dies in 1582.
Ah, damn it. I was going to ask. I'm like, now what the fuck happened to this guy?
Yep.
Okay, so he's
1582, dead. He dies. And that same year, her tax declaration states that she's living in a section of the city that is known, that many destitute prostitutes live in. And she dies of fever on July 22nd in 1591 at the age of 45, completely destitute, having been cast off and doing like survival street prostitution for the last years of her life.
God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. So like the misogynistic poets won. They painted her as the problem. And Venetian society was basically like, yeah, that sounds easier than like washing our hands or whatever. We could actually prevent the plague.
It's so, and what's so scary is that I know that it's like, wow, that's really sad. And we go like, oh, but even now it's like,
this story more than anyone else speaks to my greatest fears of being a public unrepentant whore.
Yeah.
Like my decision to come out, not to just to my friends and family, but also to like create a platform and try to tell these stories in front of audiences. It's Veronica Franco's story haunts me because it like doesn't matter how successful you get. It doesn't matter how high you rise. That fall can happen instantaneously, and all it takes is just like a shift in public, right? Like a terrorist attack or a disease or a something for society to look out for a scapegoat. And sex workers are right at the top of the list. It goes like Jews, black people, whores. I don't know what the order is, but like we're definitely on the list.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the way that people turn on you and the way that they look at you. But it isn't, and that is something with even to talk about it publicly and openly, like we do, like on stage, and then obviously we're doing this podcast. I mean, this is fucking right.
Yeah,
this is big.
So like, I wonder, like, what kind of shift would it take in the federal law for us to be charged with the felony of promoting prostitution?
Well, we're not. Well, the thing is, on the show, I don't think we're not promoting prostitution.
That could be left to a whorephobic judge to decide. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how this is gonna fucking go, right?
Exactly.
Life is long and things are complicated, and any society, like, shifts and changes happen, and people become like grist for the mill. And I mean, this is especially true of as we saw like last week with prostitutes whose immigration status is not up to date, right? If you're here in this country illegally and also doing prostitution, you're super vulnerable. If you're doing prostitution and you belong to one of these other minorities, right? Like prostitutes of color are super fucking vulnerable. The poorer you are, the fewer resources you have, the fewer the like social connections that you have that can help you. I mean, like, it becomes like a vulnerability, like tic-tac-toe check mark, you know? But like, we're vulnerable.
Yeah, and it is, and even, and it's so intense because being more public about it now, and we're feeling it. Like, I feel this strange pressure, and I'm glad that I have you to do this with. And it doesn't feel strange, but like, my parents read the Women's Health article, and that refers to the Sugar Daddy website, and you get and that's like, and even like the panty thing, like. Because to me, it's like, well, this seems like a smart thing to do, and why would I not? But you can feel people's buttholes get so tight. Yes. And friends and people that they don't, like, friends that it's like, oh, Wendy's whacking crazy. And then when I had a friend in town, and one of my guys, this was like a year ago, was in town, a guy that I saw, and I went and like, she got here and I'm like, oh, he's in town, so I'm going to go see him. He's, you know, because we have extra spending money to run around and hang out while you're in town. And on the phone, and in theory, she was like, oh, this is wacky and funny. And the reality of it, because to me, it's like not a big deal. Right. It would be the same as if I was dating somebody. It's a combination of, oh, there's a guy I'm dating who's like in town, and I really want to go fuck him. We're going to dinner. And you happen to also be getting into town that night, but you're an adult and here are the keys to my apartment. Yeah. Or like, oh, dude, you're here. I got to pick up a shift. I got to go. I'm a server all night. Nobody would care about either of those. Yeah. But when it's the combination of the two, I mean, when I got back, I was like
viscerally uncomfortable. It's like you can see how just uncomfortable she is. Right. And it's that kind of stuff. Like, it's not a problem now. Right. But imagine if she's the only person in the world you can depend on to bail you out of jail. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's it's like the slow erosion and isolation. The same thing happens to domestic violence victims. It's like their social networks become eroded by their abuser, and they no longer have anyone that they can reach out to support. Right. Society tries to do the same thing to sex workers, of just eroding their social support, which is why when people are arrested for this, it's such a problem. And why like swap behind bars is such a big deal, because when you're arrested for even the misdemeanor of prostitution, right, that you become outed to your friends and family, and they frequently turn their support away in the way that, like, if you were arrested for drunk driving, like, your older brother would come and like bail you out of jail, and like you guys would like figure it out. But if you're arrested for prostitution, nobody wants anything to do with you, and things can spiral. Like a $500 fine that you can't pay on time because you're no longer allowed to do prostitution becomes a $1,500 fine. Now there's a warrant out for your arrest. It can just spiral.
And then you go into it's like, okay, fine. Well, so then I guess I'll go get, it's like, okay, fine. Then I'll go get just a regular day job. I'll go temp somewhere. And then if they look at your record that you've been arrested for that, they're not going to hire you. Absolutely. Which is like, that would be the first person I would hire, because it's like, this person is dedicated to their job. They're not your butthole. All your holes are going to be safe and sound. You just have to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so just a heads up. I think this is the first time that we're talking about this organization on the podcast. It's like Swap Behind Bars is an organization that connects current and former sex workers to incarcerated sex workers. So they have like a letter writing campaign. So, and it's a lifeline for these women, because then they can because SWAT behind bars can connect them to resources. They can connect them to employers that are willing to overlook the prostitution charge. They can connect them to a temporary place to stay if they can't go home. They can connect them to an attorney that has a history of not being a complete cunt to sex workers. I mean, it's like, they can provide resources that only sex workers know about.
Right. That's awesome. They do that. I like it for the resources. And then also just for the emotional support. And I feel like that's one of the big things that with the podcast that you and I are doing, because not only do we want to start talking about the history of sex workers and to humanize them, not just for the general public, but also to encourage, and I hate to use the word embolden, but give some self-confidence back to the sex worker community in general.
Imagine what we all as a society thought was true about gay people in the 50s.
Yeah.
Because when you have that kind of population closeted, it creates this vacuum that can be filled with all of this fear and misinformation.
Yep.
But if we just come out and tell our stories, it starts to chip away at those prejudices. But, as we saw in the case of Veronica Franco, it's not without dangers. And
Right.
I want to say this, because I think this is something that we're going to see over and over again, but I think it's especially true in the case of Veronica Franco and Venice at this time, is that courtesans or prostitutes, sex workers, are like the canary in the coal mine for women's rights. Right? Is because the bad example of whore, right? So the Madonna whore complex, right? Like the angel on one side, whore on the other. The example of whore and the stickiness and the hate and the stigma of that is used like a bludgeon to keep women from being able to have freedom of movement, from being able to speak publicly, from being able to publish their stories, for being able to have autonomy and agency in their own lives. Because if they exercise that, they run the risk of becoming whores, which is the worst thing.
Yep.
And then as people crack down on whores, it inevitably comes with this backlash against women generally.
Right.
Yeah.
And you even see that even in just in the vernacular that we use. We call someone a whore or a slut or whatever. And even in the comedy world, in roast battle, we that's the number one slam, as you can. And if a woman dresses a certain way or is mouthy, I've been just so it's not even that you have to be actually trading sex, working as an actual sex worker. If you just are dressed in a provocative way and you're showing off your body and you're mouthy and you're spouting off opinions.
Or even if you're just ambitious.
Right.
Or even if you're just stating a public opinion. I mean, remember when Rush Limbaugh called that law school student a prostitute because she was advocating that birth control ought to be covered in healthcare plans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And he
was hoping that would be enough to shut them up. And what
Right.
we're hoping to do here, and I think what the sex worker movement is about, is kind of a and attitude.
Right.
We can take the sting and the stigma out from this. Not only can we save trafficking victims, which we'll get into in later episodes, but we can also stop curtailing the rights of women, because we can take the fear out of this worst thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is going to start, and it's which that Veronica couldn't do, because in her time, obviously, it's difficult 'cause she can't write letters to every you can't. It's difficult to communicate and gather. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
She can't tweet. She can't send a mass email. But with the podcast here, because what we want to do is not only share stories and bring the community together, where people can start talking, having conversations, and realizing that you are not an isolate, even though it's such an isolating thing sometimes.
Yep.
Where you're lying, and I've done this when I would sometimes lie to people about where I was going.
And it compounds the shame and the stigma.
Yeah,
and all
and
of
any
this stuff.
time, and this is something in recovery that I've learned, and with eating disorder groups and in any addiction thing, you're only as sick as your secrets. So whenever you keep something inside and there's shame, and you let that build up, you then, even though it's not a shameful thing, you start to feel that way. And then when you feel like a piece of shit, that's when you start behaving like a piece of shit. And this is something we'll get into in other episodes, because that's a big thing. But as far as it's huge in the sex worker community, and this is something that I struggled with, and I'm reeling it back, which is you feel so terrible, and so you go well, maybe I'll drink, or maybe I'll do drugs, and so then it leads to all these abuse.
Or get crazy with your rec sex, or start taking real risks with your clients. I think that there are two things that can lead to that, right? There's the addict mentality, and this buying into if you feel like a piece of shit, acting like a piece of shit. That's a big danger that is not unique to sex work, but is certainly present in sex work.
Correct.
And then the other thing is making choices out of desperation. When you feel like your survival is on the line, when you feel like you don't have any other options, when you feel like you're putting a rock in a hard hard place. That's when you make choices about what clients to see and what to do with them that can lead you either to jail or 6 feet under.
Right.
But we got to wrap it up. When we come back after these messages, I can't wait to tell you about a contemporary mouthy whore who's not pulling any punches and is telling her story with absolutely nothing to fear. It's really inspiring.
Oh, perfect. Into it.
This episode is sponsored by Velvet Swing, which is a cannabis-enhanced lube that is very nice.
Ooh.
You should follow the founder. This is a whore-owned and operated business.
Okay.
Mistress Matisse on Twitter. So buying this product supports not just your own sex life, but also the sex worker rights movement. Mistress Matisse is a big deal.
Thank you, Mistress.
Yes, you can follow Mistress Matisse at Mistress, M-I-S-T-R-E-S-S, Matisse, M-A-T-I-S-S-E.
Yeah, you know why I feel so good? Because while you were in the kitchen about 10 minutes ago before we recorded this, I took that cannabis lube and I jammed it in my butthole. I'll tell you, not the thing.
How do you feel?
Amazing.
Right? You feel relaxed?
I feel my butthole feels great.
Your butthole feels
Oh my
relaxed?
God, I didn't even think about this. This would be great for anal.
Of course. Yeah, you can't overestimate the importance of a relaxed butthole.
I love anal already. I'm going to be squirting all over the wall if I put some... Okay, now I do want to wrap this because I want to go get fucked.
Velvet Swing, so you can get high while getting down. Welcome back. So the person that I want to tell you about is going to be a hero of ours. I'm really excited. On October 29th, 2015, Margaret Cho, at the age of 46, tweeted, "Sex work is simply work. For me, it was honest work. I was a sex worker when I was young. It was hard, but well paid. There's no shame in it." Yep.
What?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Margaret Cho was a sex worker.
I just got chills on my whole body.
She's been out about it. She talks about it. She was like, it was never a secret. People just didn't make a big deal about it. But she made no effort to hide her sex work. It just kind of like people got distracted by her bisexuality or her BDSM stuff or her like talking about sex all the time, and they like forgot to.
And
dig
her
into their sex
tattoos.
work.
What
And
a
her
sneaky
tattoos.
bitch.
Yeah, but she, before her comedy career took off, she worked first as a phone sex operator and then as a dominatrix. She said that she was bad at both of them.
Yeah,
but it paid the bills, and now her comedy career's taken off, and she's absolutely unrepentant. Like, she's absolutely not buying into any kind of story that anyone's gonna tell Margaret fucking Cho how to feel about her sex work, and she's been a supporter of sex workers her entire career.
Get out of my pussy
and
with that
just
woman.
like Veronica Franco, she's a famous and brilliant wit.
Yeah. I did not realize that about Margaret Cho.
Yeah.
I gotta start following that bitch on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
That's so... And
she's great.
So she made that tweet. I can't believe that I've never heard that about her. But I guess because she was doing it and then like started doing stand up, and that didn't bleed into her act at all.
Exactly. So she wasn't doing what we're doing, right? So like we're choosing to make sex work like front and center, right? Like both you and I have chosen not just to talk about it, but to talk about it a lot. Right. Margaret Cho wasn't keeping it a secret. She just wasn't opening with that. She wasn't it wasn't front and center for her, but she's absolutely a sex worker, absolutely talks about it, and absolutely believes in like sex workers' rights and like ending stigma. And
that, I think, is the best attitude to have, and to go like what we were talking about earlier before the break with like the goal of this podcast, and even the goal of just anytime we talk about it on stage or when Kayla and I are like communicating with people about it, is it's the normalization of it. And then also it's because you can take it's like here. So this is the example I'm going to use. When a little kid, right? Because little babies, they're very dumb. They've just been on the planet for a year or two.
They're not smarter than chickens for like the first 2 years.
Yeah. So a kid, here's a trick. If you're babysitting or you got a kid and you're like, you've never been around him. When a kid falls and bangs their head, they feel pain, but they don't really know what's happening. So you
get to tell them how to emotionally react.
Absolutely, exactly. So a kid falls and they look up at you, and if you go, oh my God, they start screaming. But if you go, yeah, all right, and you clap, they kind of laugh and they're like, I guess it's fine.
I guess it's fine.
Right? They're like, I guess, okay. If you say it.
What if you were just laughing and clapping while they bleed out because you're like, Wendy told me that this would be fine.
Yeah, they're just like applause break, and there's somebody just with, hey, I saved you.
If you're babysitting a child and they get hit by a car, please take them to the emergency room. Do not try to manipulate them.
Yeah, don't.
Not acknowledging their
Yeah. If your child's bleeding, I mean, I mean, hey, I don't have kids for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So maybe don't take all my, but for like a little bump and a spill.
No, of course. I know. Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Now I'm picturing just like someone who's a paramedic and they're like, I lost my last three like people that I found. Now I know the solution. I just picture like EMTs just giving an applause break to like a dying person.
What did I put this clown nose on?
Yeah. Oh, I saw Patch Adams, and then I just started listening to this new podcast called The Oldest Profession, and I think I figured it out. Laughter is the best medicine. But I feel like the same way with sex work, with the Sugar Daddy article, when I wrote that, and people will contact me, and when I talk about it on stage, and they go, is that real? Instead of going, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it. Or when I started getting attention for it, because I wasn't going out, when I started talking about it on stage, I wasn't like, I'm going to go out and become a voice for sex workers. I was like, I just happened to be dating a guy who's rich and and then that kind of happened as my career started to take off, and now people are listening.
Yeah, I remember watching this transition with you. I remember watching like you getting into sex work because I talk very publicly about it. So I feel like when people are making those choices, they come to me frequently, like to talk about that transition, which is cool. And I remember that. I remember like watching your evolution on stage, like talking about like your rich boyfriend, to talking about like a more formal stuff, to talking about like sex work generally. I didn't talk about sex work on stage for the first 5 years that I did comedy because I thought that it would be a pigeonholing thing.
Yeah.
And I don't feel wrong about that, but I stopped giving a fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think because I was doing comedy for almost like 7 years, 6.5, 7 years before I started, and I talk about everything. I'm very open and honest on stage, and I talk about real life things, and I try to make it work. So that was just something I was doing. And it didn't occur to me that like, this is something shameful. It was like, oh, a funny thing I was just talking about and an interesting slice of life.
Well, that's the cool thing about comics is I think that we are not trained is the wrong way, but we just have a perspective on thinking about like the things that happen in life outside of a value judgment, right?
Correct.
Like we want comics to talk about their heroin addiction. We want comics to talk about the problems in their marriage. We want comics to talk about the complexities of parenthood without the normal judgment stuff that you get in, like civilian interactions. And I don't think that sex work, I think that like this is one of the best places to be talking honestly and openly about sex work because we can talk about it in all of its nuance, right? Like advocacy, you have to make things like sort of simple and nice, mainstream. If you work for a place with an HR department, you can't talk about it at all.
Correct.
Comedy is like someplace in the middle where you're allowed to talk about it and all of its messy complexity.
Yeah. And I think if you talk about it, and when people would ask me, and as I started to get more notoriety for that, and as I started, just my comedy career is starting to build. It's in the process of building. And people are Googling me, and that article comes up first. And so it's this big salacious thing people want to talk about. And I think the difference is, and it's exactly what Margaret Cho did, is instead of responding in shame or being like, oh God, this is embarrassing, I don't want to talk about it. You say like, yes, this is something that this is something that I am doing, or this is something that I did do. And like, I'm not ashamed. Shame is the biggest thing.
There's a movie about Veronica Franco called Dangerous Beauty that is both really good and also really bad in different ways. It's great. The filmmakers did a really good job of like capturing the time period. It also just feels a little bit like a softcore porn, and I think the editing could be. It doesn't matter. My thoughts on the film, but the film exists and it's great. And the guy that plays her patron, Domenico Veneer, in the film says something that I think is true for all of us contemplating whether or not to come out as sex workers, which is tell the truth and shame the devil. Yeah. Like and Margaret Cho actually says in this article, there's no statute of limitations to the truth.
Well,
yeah.
I'm getting chills on my body. No, and that's the thing is like, be honest and like, yeah, shame.
Nobody gets to tell you the story of your life. You're the author of your own story. You get to decide what matters to you. You get to decide the story that you tell yourself about your own life. So you can choose to make this the stigmatizing, defining, fall from grace moment, or you can talk about it as one of many things that happened in your life. And I think that we always have that choice no matter what it is, whether it's sex work or a car accident or, losing a job. Like, we get to decide how we frame the things that happen to us in our lives. Yeah. So you wrote the article and came out. Did your family find out before that or after that?
I told my mother. And then the article came out, and I'm sure people read it and they see everything. And my mom, like, But she left my dad when I was a kid. She left my dad and married a guy who had more money.
So you're like, you get it.
Exactly. She was having an affair while she was married, and the guy she's with now, my stepdad. And I love my family, and everyone's great, but it's like, this still happened.
It wasn't not a calculated move,
right?
Yeah.
So she was having an affair. So it's like, I was like, that sucks. Like when you're, and this is a lot of times people have resentments against their parents. Because, and like, oh, this happened and that was terrible and whatever. But then part of me was like, it's actually cool because if your parents do something really shitty and like pretty, like you could say it was amoral. And now looking at it, I don't think it's amoral. I don't believe anything is amoral. I think we're all just humans trying to do the best we can. So I don't fault anybody for what they do.
Yeah.
And you can say, okay, maybe that's a bad move, but you then look at all sides. But the good thing about my mom cheating on my dad and like leaving us when we were little is that now you don't get to say shit to me if I'm fucking some rich guy in Manhattan.
We get to just both be adults.
Yeah.
Deeply flawed adults.
Yeah, we're adults. And guess what? You don't have to rent me a car because I'm taking free Ubers everywhere. Yeah. And I'm having more fun.
Yes.
Like moving around New York and being able to do things like, it's just nice.
Life is meant to be enjoyed. I think that we lose sight of that. Thank you guys so much for listening to The Oldest Profession. If you want to tell us your story or there's an old hoe that you think we should cover, please email us at theoldestprofessionpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. And of course, follow us on Twitter at Old Pro Podcast. We're also on Instagram at Old Pro Podcast. And of course, tell your friends, rate us on iTunes. You can follow me at Caitlin Bailey.
And you can follow me at Wendy Starling on Twitter. There we go. Look at that. That's the sounding bell. But email us. Let's start conversations. We want this to be like, even if you just want to vent, just let us, if you have no one to talk to, let us be your people to talk to right now. And let's start like opening up and treating yourselves nicely.
Yeah, and give it a big round of applause for Veronica Franco and Margaret Cho for being loudmouth bitches that nobody's going to tell to shut up.
Yeah, and do not watch Tulip Fever. Terrible movie. All right, bye, guys.